In a survey of 132 SKs nationwide done by the Center for Youth Advocacy and Networking in 2020, it was found out that around 60% perceive themselves as not fully financially independent. The factors explaining this are mixed, according to the report, and we will go through them in a while. Right now, i-define muna natin in the context of the SK, how to be financially independent po ba? Quick and short answer, nothing in RA 10742 or its IRR clearly and categorically defines financial independence. But what the law provides are characteristics, indicators, or elements of a financially independent SK would look like, mostly underscored in Section 20. But by comparison, let's take some insights elsewhere first. For instance, sa isang relasyon, mag-asawa na o mag-jowa pa lamang, in some cases, financial independence is a basic and central consideration. Si partner may sariling income at may sariling kakayahan gumastos. At ikaw naman, meron din. May sarili kayong access sa kanya-kanya ninyong funds, probably in a bank account. At higit sa lahat, with this ideal situation, ang pinakamahalaga may sarili kayong kakayahang magdesisyon para saan at paano ninyo gagastusin ang pondo ninyo, para sa sarili at para sa relasyon. Oha! Relationship guru yarn? But at its most fundamental level, seriously, ganun din naman ang itsura ng financial independence sa SK in a nutshell. May sariling funds, may sariling bank account, may sariling agency at accountability over the use of such funds. You would recall that before the SK Reform Act, all funds of the SK are deposited, maintained, and handled under the name of the barangay through its chairperson. That in itself is not the inherent issue here. Ultimately, the problem arises from its impact on the way the SK governance is practiced and realized in its most progressive manner possible. Therefore, financial independence in the context of the SK is about our youth leaders in the barangay having a reasonable level of capacity and opportunity to make decisions on its own, at the same time take responsibility for such decisions. Others would even argue that it's also about narrowing the chance for patronage politics in the SK and beyond, and having the road towards a truly progressive youth governance in the country. And yet, the question remains, how to be really financially independent as SKs? Here are some key steps. 1. Ensure that there is indeed an appropriation for SK funds in the Barangay DBM DILG NYC Joint Memorandum Circular 1 Series of 2019. It states that the Barangay Treasurer shall inform in writing the SK Chairperson and the SK Treasurer on or before the 15th of September of the estimated 10% of the general fund of the barangay for the ensuing fiscal year. In other words, have that written guarantee from your barangay that a tenth of its estimated budget for the following year is clearly and categorically appropriated for the SK and SK alone. Manigurado mga bes! 2. Ensure that the SK funds are released. There's no specific date in the law or its IRR, but in JMC number 1, 2019 gives us a general rule of thumb. Not later than 5 working days after the credentialing of the Internal Revenue Allotment or RRA share of the barangay, or in the case of other barangay income, accruing to the general fund. Not later than 5 working days after the end of the month. But under this step are sub-steps that the SKs are required or encouraged to accomplish ahead. 2.1. Apply for fidelity bonding with the Bureau of Treasury, particularly for the SK Chairperson and the Treasurer. You can check the requirements and the processes in the policies shown on the screen. It is assumed that at this point that the SK Chairperson and the Treasurer, together with the other officials, have undergone the mandatory training program in accordance with the DILG Memo Circular number 2018-48, including sessions on financial management and auditing rules. Kung wala pa, ensure na ninyo na nakapag-training na kayo. Marami tayong nabalitaan last 2019-2020 na hindi nakapag-open ng bank account dahil lang dito. 2.2. Apply for a tax identification number. Based on the provisions of Section 4.2.2 of Revenue Regulations Number 7, 2012 and Section 20 of the IRR of the Republic Act 10742, SK should be registered with the Revenue District Office. Having the jurisdiction over the location of the barangay, The SKs shall become the withholding agent on purchases made to the taxable individuals or entities. Here are the steps in applying for a taxpayer identification number. 2.3. Open a bank account named after the SK with its chairperson and treasurer as signatories in a government-owned and within or close to its area of jurisdiction. Mayroong dalawang pagpipilian. Isa dyan ang Land Bank of the Philippines at isa naman ay ang Development Bank of the Philippines. In a more ideal setup, mas maigi raw na same bank and branch rin ang sangguniang barangay. 2.4. Continue capacitating yourselves as SKs on financial management and auditing rules. Kahit may mandatory, choose to take more training opportunities as available. For example, CO has been organizing virtual training sessions on the Handbook on Financial Transactions of SKs. This is essential not only to avoid financial lapses and corresponding liabilities, but to also empower yourselves with the right tools and skills for the effective use of SK funds. Step 3 and last, ensure that the SK funds are disbursed and spent judiciously. Hindi enough na may pondo lang tayo at hindi rin enough na magagastos lang natin ito. Above all, SKs must make sure that they efficiently spend their funds for relevant and effective programs or projects with their youth constituency or the katipunan ng kabataan at the forefront and center of their financial decision-making processes. Sounds complicated? Not really. And this is where the role of the Comprehensive Barangay Youth Development Plan, in accordance with the Philippine Youth Development Plan and the Local Youth Development Plan, comes in. The CBYDP is also the basis for which funds shall be spent in detail through the Annual Barangay Youth Investment Plan or ABYIP. More on it and the other plans in other pit stops in our SK Interactive Map. But here's the takeaway from the last portion. Ang paggamit ng SK funds ng tama at naayon sa tunay na pangailangan ng mga kabataan sa barangay ay marahil ang pinakamahalagang elemento ng pagkakaroon ng financial independence. Ginagamit natin ang SK funds hindi dahil sabi lang ni Kapitan, kundi dahil pinagdesisyonan ito ng malaya ng mga bumubuo ng SK at KK. Ginagamit natin ang SK funds hindi para lang kung ano-anong pangtrapo na proyekto, kundi para sa mga serbisyong nag-uugat mula sa mga pangailangan at pangarap ng mga kabataan sa ating barangay. Ginagamit natin ang SK funds hindi dahil sinabi lang sa batas. Ginagamit natin ito kasi niyayakap natin ng buo ang hamon at responsibilidad bilang mga leader kabataan, ang pagiging sangguniang kabataan. With that, ready na ba kayo for 100% financial independence? We hope yes! Ako si RJ Nagit mula sa Youth for Mental Health Coalition at SK Reform Coalition. At if you think you need more support and guidance on this topic, you may send a message to the Center for Youth Advocacy and Networking.